Hey, good evening, everybody, man. I want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 9-8, man. And I'm definitely happy to be back on here again. Had some technical difficulties earlier, but I got that figured out, and we're about to go head on and jump on with it, man. But outside of that, man, I'm just so excited, so happy to be back on here. I look forward to this every week, and I'm grateful to be going strong for 210 episodes, almost going on 5 years later on this year. And hey, this is an interactive show, so let me know where you're tuning in from. Feel free to get involved, jump in, and comment, and so we can interact. But with all of that being said, man, I'm sharing this with a few people, and we're about to get right on to it. But I'm excited about tonight's show, and definitely excited about all of the things that going to transpire in the conversation of the night. Definitely excited about that. But I hope all is well with everybody. And man, we're gonna get right on to it. And tonight's conversation is a real good conversation. And what we're gonna talk about is realizing the fear of the unknown will imprison you if you refuse to address it. And that just getting to it right down to it. The fear of the unknown can and will imprison you if you refuse to address it. And that can go in so many different ways. That can go in so many different areas in our lives. And it's just because, and I want to say this too, we are all we're complex people. We are complex. We have complex lives, and just because one area may be good, that doesn't mean we may not struggle or have to deal with things in another area. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up about it. But fear, unaddressed fear, and not dealing with it can imprison you and can hold you captive, so that you will be imprisoned at a certain space and not grow and operate in the fullness of what you can operate in if you refuse to address it. But you have to address it. I'm telling you have to address it. And I know that's one thing that's hard. I know it's hard for some people to come to grips with, but I do want to say that is a very true thing. Like, it can be hard. It can be very hard. And it will imprison you. One thing about it, the fear of the unknown is something that many of us struggle with. And what we allow that unknown for many of us in certain areas in our lives. We allow the unknown to dictate what's going on in our reality. We allow the unknown, the fear of addressing the unknown, to truly see and truly the fear of the unknown to keep us in a space where we stay stagnant and we stay there. And it's a place, because we're so afraid to address it, that we'll stay imprisoned in a place that we already have the things and the tools and the strength to overcome it. And the sad reality is many of us stay stuck in those areas for years, and we don't even see the potential of the abundant life that we can have, because we allow the fear to imprison us. And the fear of the unknown keep a lot of us locked in misery and chaos, all because we are too afraid to address it. We're too afraid to address it. And one of the things I want us to really sit down and understand and think about it, right? The fear of the unknown. What's up, Ant? How you doing? Thanks for tuning in, cuz. Appreciate you. But the one thing I want us to understand when we looking at it, and we have to look at it from this perspective, just because you're good in one area in your life, that doesn't mean that you're not going to struggle in other areas in your life. Some areas we're walking and we're living in the abundance of it. There's nothing that can come in that area of our lives that will get us down. But in other areas, we're fearful. In other areas, we're struggling. In other areas, we have things that we try to overcome. But many of us, we allow that fear of the unknown to imprison us in those areas, and we don't grow in them. And many of us, what we try to do is we either try to keep everybody from around it or getting close into it because we're afraid of being exposed. Or we expect those that connected to us to cater to cater to our fears, and don't want people to push us to become better. And we begin to attack certain people that are really there to help us get out of those areas, but we attack them because at the end of the day, we're afraid to address it. And that's sad. That's sad in all of itself. And I want us to really sit down and think about it. Think about those areas in our lives. Think about those areas and things that we deal with that we have to address and overcome. And I say that because, I'm not just speaking it. Some of the stuff, man, like one of the things is we don't like talking about it, but we have to think about this too. The fear of the unknown can show itself in so many different things. So the fear of the unknown, a lot of us grow up and we experience traumatic things. And what we try to do is we tell ourselves, I'm never going to experience that. So what happens is as we grow and we just probably experience dysfunction in our home and not seeing a good relationship, we're going to say, I'm never going to deal with that. But the reality is because we don't never face it, what we dealt with, the trauma that we dealt with, we create a lot of unrealistic expectations on what something should be. And that impacts our future. And the problem is when we grow up and we get in relationships, we find ourselves exhibiting the same behavior, all because we never addressed the issue that was bothering us in the first place. But the reason why we don't want to address our trauma is because we are afraid to address our trauma. Because a lot of times that trauma, we see a lot of similarities in us that the other one, or we don't even have the full story, but we just operate out of fear. So we just continue to cause chaos in our lives. We'll do that. We cause chaos in our lives, and a lot of us don't even realize that we're actually doing it. We don't even realize that. We're just in a survival mode. We're just in a space to where we're just surviving. We're in a space to where we're just doing what we need to do. We're in a space to where we just feel like, hey, all is well as long as I'm good. And the sad thing is, many of us feel like that we're good when we're actually not good. The issue is that space where we consider good is just familiarity of chaos and dysfunction that we have become accustomed to. So it becomes a comfort zone for us, but that doesn't mean that it's good for us. And so many of us, we stay imprisoned in that spot because we refuse to address the fear of the unknown or the fear of facing whatever it may have been, whatever it may have been. Fear of facing that trauma, that traumatic thing that happened, the fear of facing the fact that you probably are dealing with some emotions, that you probably was abandoned by your parents, or a fear of disappointment, the fear of letdown, the fear of being betrayed. There's a lot of things that many of us fears and things that we all have to overcome, and it impacts us in so many different ways and so many different people. Like some areas in your life, you can be strong with facing the fears of certain areas in your life. You could be strong with facing the fear of the unknown, but we all grow from that. And I want us to really understand that. And that's one thing that is true. But there are a lot of areas in our lives where we face fear and we can overcome that fear by addressing it. And we are very good at it. We face the fear. We have the drive. We have the courage. We have the internal intestinal fortitude to face certain things and get after it on the job. Boom, on the job, we're a superhero. On the job, no matter what they bring to us, we problem solve. We can address it. We can articulate. We can get on with it. Boom. And in our marriage, we may be great at that. But then when it comes down to you healing from that traumatic relationship with your parent, with a sibling, with somebody from your past, you suppress it. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to talk about it. You push it off. And then you're operating at excellence in other areas, but we're failing in the other areas in our lives because we're too afraid to address it. And that's what I'm talking about. You have to realize that fear can keep you in prison if you don't want to address it. If you refuse to address it. Like we have to address it. And I want us to understand this, not only the importance of addressing it just for the sake of, but addressing it for those that are connected with you, those that are around you. I want us to really understand this, man. You can, and it's sad, but it's the truth. Many of us can operate in different levels of excellence in different spaces in our lives, but then have other areas where we are really lacking in, that we're really are not doing well in, that we're really operating in fear in. Because so many of us, we operate in victory in certain areas, but you can still operate in fear in other areas. That's because the place that we operate in victory, that means that we've done the work. We've done the work and we've gotten to a space where it's comfortable for us to address it and operate with it. But in those other spaces of the places of fear, a lot of us operate in fear, because we are too afraid to go back in, and we allow that fear to imprison us in that area. But the thing about it is, when we operate like that, that doesn't mean that we don't elevate in other areas in our lives. We just stay down here in this area, and that keep us from overall going to the next level. We got everything else up. Everything else is good and functional, but that one area we refuse to address, that will keep us imprisoned and keep us down at the level where we know we should elevate from. That definitely would keep us from there. And I want us to really understand that, and not only understand that, but really address it and talk about it. You know, the fear of failure. Listen, the reality is, this is the reality. The reality is we are all going to fail. The reality is we're all going to fail in many areas in our lives. The reality is we are going to have some things that we don't know. But what I've learned is, I learned that a lot of times in areas in my life where I was fearful and I allowed myself to be imprisoned in that space, when I got the courage and started doing work towards it, what I realized was the thing that I feared, I already had the tools and the skills and whatever to overcome it. I just needed the courage to face it. I just need the courage to go and face that Goliath. I just need the courage to pick up I already had, like, I'm using this analogy, but I already had the 3 stones. I already had the slingshot. I already had the skill of using it, but I had to have the courage to go face it. I had the courage to go and face it one-on-one, so that because when I faced it, I realized I'm already equipped, and I'm not going to allow this barrier. I'm not going to allow this thing that I'm fearful of to have rule in my life no longer. That's bottom line. That's what I got. And I got to that space where I had to overcome. And I can remember speaking one time, and the title of Can You Overcome Your Goliath? That was literally the first sermon that I preached and I spoke on. But can you face your Goliath? And a lot of times, you know, the biggest thing is this, and I want us to understand. Many times the things that we fear are exaggerated in their appearance because we listen to the propaganda of it. And by we listening to the propaganda of it, it blows itself up way more than what it actually is. It's really magnified. It's projected as something big, but it's really something small. And that's because we allow things to be spoken to us. We entertain things, and we tell ourselves and we believe things that, oh, it's hard. It's going to be too hard to deal with. Oh, they ain't going to do this. Or we put all this other stuff. And the reality is it has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with us and what we're going to choose to do, what we're going to choose to address, what the work that we're going to be willing to put in. And once we find out that our overcoming the fear in a lot of areas is predicated on us putting in the work and doing the necessary steps and the things to overcome it. It really depends on us. It doesn't really depend on a lot of people. I'm telling you, and I know that's something that, excuse me, I know that's something that's hard for a lot of people to really gather, but that's it right there. I'm telling you, we have to realize the fear of the unknown, the fear of the unknown. A lot of things, when you say the unknown, the biggest thing that we need to do, and I know a lot of people don't think about it, but the biggest thing we need to do to overcome a lot of the fears of the unknown is make the unknown known. It's to do the work on getting to know what that unknown is. Just taking that time to get to know. And then a lot of times, watch this. It's okay to not know and be open to experience something new. And that imprisons a lot of us because we're afraid of something new, because it feels unfamiliar with it. But a lot of times what we don't realize is the very thing that may feel unfamiliar is what we should have been feeling the whole time. But because we allowed the fear to keep us in prison, we were just comfortable with the dysfunction and the chaos. That's what keeps us bound. And the fear of the unknown is, oh, I don't know. I'm scared of how this going to feel. Bro, I'm already hurting. I'm already not liking where I'm at. I might as well go experience something new. And when I go experience something new, what I find out is, dang, this is what I really been looking for the whole time. This is what I was searching for because I took the leap of faith. That right there is what I was searching for. Don't allow that, man. I'm telling you, listen, we got to get to a space that we think about certain things. And I want us to understand this and make a proclamation, but don't allow the comfort of your dysfunction. Don't allow the comfort of your chaos that you have grown accustomed to be a barrier till you experience the abundance of life or to experience new things that bring you peace, that bring you happiness, that bring you contentment. You don't always have to deal with chaos. If you choose to stay there, that's on you. But don't act as if you don't have the ability to experience abundant life, because you do. There's so much more out there for many of us. But the reality is many of us choose that chaos and that dysfunction because we are so familiar to it. So we feel like, oh, that's comfortable for us. But then we have an internal conflict because we know there's something, we have an inner desire that, excuse me, that know there's something better for us. But we sit here and we fight it. We fight it because we stay what we're comfortable with. We stay imprisoned in it. But I tell you, you can overcome that, but you got to first face it. You have to first face it. You can't sit around and just let it be. You got to face it. Some things you have to, and I will tell you this, man, when you get, and I know a lot of people may not like this, but excuse me. When you get to a space to where you want to seek better and you want to overcome the things that may have been causing you fear and causing you to stay stuck in a space where you don't want to be, when you really get to that space and you start working towards it, God will open doors to have people strategically put in your place to help you on that journey. They'll have people to come in that have been through what you went through or going through, and they'll encourage you with a word. God will put people in positions of leadership to pull those things out of you, to give you the covering that you need as you work through those things. How do I know that? Because God did the same thing. He did it for me. And I'm not saying that just to say that. I'm saying that because God put Colonel retired Karen Jane Rowe over me when I was going through ROTC, and I needed that covering. I needed her being on me and her development of me. I needed that, but God helped me get through that time where I was fearful, but I made my mind up that I was going to do the work, and God sent the help that I needed. He sent the help that I needed. And I say that, and I'm saying that when we get to that space to where we're willing to overcome and do those things, I'm telling you, you will start to see doors open up for you when you face it. Look, David said this. David said, if you had to look at it, in the story of the Bible, David and Goliath, when David showed up with taking some bread and cheese to his brother as they was fighting the Philistines, and Goliath was coming out speaking every day. And then when David just said he remembered who he was. He remembered, hey, I'm a child of God. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Who is this dude? What he talking about? And everybody else was scared, but David didn't look at it from a natural standpoint. He knew who had his back. And a lot of times when we are stuck in fear, it's because we forget who we are. See, fear for me, fear is an acronym that I came up with. Said it's forgetting every assurance of the resurrection. And when we allow ourselves to be stuck in fear, we forget all the assurance of the resurrection. We forget that I'm more than a conqueror. We forget I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. We forget those things. And many times we have to go back and remind ourselves who we are and whose we are so we can overcome it. We have to remind ourselves who we are and whose we are so we can overcome it, so we can address it, so we can strive to something greater. And that's what I'm excited about. And that's why I wanted to just encourage somebody that sometimes realizing the fear of the unknown will imprison you if you refuse to address it. If you choose to stay where you are, that's on you. Period. I ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm talking to the people who say, you know what, I want a little better. I want better than what I'm experiencing. So I want you guys to understand that and enjoy that, and not only enjoy it, but I hope this was a blessing to you. And man, I hope all is well with you. I hope all goes well. And I thank you guys for tuning in with your boy. Make sure you go and like and I mean all of my social media platforms, YouTube, the Conversation 98, the Conversation 98 on Instagram. The Conversation 98 here on Facebook, and the Conversation _98 on TikTok. Make sure you go and like and subscribe. Hey, man, thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. God bless.